Hello, welcome to Around the Rink yet again. I guess it was a crazy bit of week in hockey. I mean, just a lot of stuff going on, lots of news stories, and hope to try and capture all of it for you today. So, where's a hard place to start? I guess an easy place to start is with Edmonton. We mentioned to you last time that Rick DiPietro signed with the Carolina Hurricanes because the Hurricanes had come across tough times with their goaltending troubles. Well, as we were talking about earlier, and during the last show, is that Edmonton's also been having issues with their goaltending and
injuries in general.
Yes, injuries in general. You're right. We talked about Gagne getting hurt, and Devin Dubnik's now hurt, who was underperforming in the first place. So
Taylor Hall just came back from injury, and they have a couple other guys on IR. Justin Schultz went there with something with groin-related injury. So
yes, it's just been really tough for Edmonton going on in there because they're still kind of stuck at the bottom of the.
They had high hopes this year, but it looks like the rookies can't find their way through. The young stars can't find their way. They missed that veteran experience that's important on most winning teams.
Yeah, so they're worst in the Western Conference right now with only 10 points. So even Calgary's in front of them, their rivals. So things haven't been looking too good. So desperate times call for desperate measures, and the Edmonton Oilers called up none other than Ilya Bryzgalov to help fill the goaltending void that it's encountering. And I think we're all familiar with how tough that decision has to be because we know Bryzgalov is definitely not a permanent solution. Definitely not a very average goaltender to start too. But the whole thing that kind of happened it was strange, right, Jack? It started off a trade.
Yeah, it was a trade between Edmonton and Calgary.
Right,
rivals.
Exactly. The rivals. You never
in the same province of Alberta. The Battle of Alberta. But this is only like the second time they've made a deal in their franchise history between the two. And it was the Oilers sending Ladislav Smid,
right,
one of their top shot-blocking defensemen, and a guy who's healthy right now for a goaltending prospect, and I forget, it's another center, I think, a forward.
Right, some prospect. But
yeah,
they had to make the trade to open up cap space in Edmonton.
Yeah, that was it.
And then, do you remember if they signed Ilya Bryzgalov to?
I do not. Let me check Cap Geek right now.
Yeah, so we'll take a closer look at Edmonton. I think we did take a look at them last week, but Edmonton just they're kind of stalling a little bit. I think Jordan Eberle's still leading the team with 13 points. They have several 10 point guys already, but that hasn't translated into any big wins because they are only 4-12-2 with 3 regulation or overtime wins for 10 points, and then we will go down, and their goaltending has just kind of been atrocious between Devin Dubnyk, Jason LaBarbera, and Richard Bachman. Richard Bachman has the best with a .916 save percentage, but then you go down, Devin Dubnyk has an .878 save percentage. Meanwhile, Jason LaBarbera has .858 save percentage. So
now they signed Bryzgalov at $1,750,000, 1.75.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, for a temporary solution, but Briz has proved in the past that he could be a world-class goaltender.
He has proved when he played in Phoenix, he did. So,
and a lot of people are saying that they give him a chance because Philly just destroys goaltenders.
That's true.
They went through like 1 million at one point. Remember, like throughout the 2000s, they had like Robert Esch, Martin Biron, Antero Ninamaki,
Chuck Monick. Yeah, you're right. They did have a lot of guys, so maybe it's worth giving him a chance. But 1.75, I guess the only explanation I have is that he was in a position of power, and the Oilers were not to negotiate. So interesting though, because I guess with Brizgalov entertaining deals in the Russian league in the KHL, I guess there was a not so negotiable kind of contract. So whatever the case is, he's there now. Is there any timetable on he'll start?
I haven't seen one yet.
All right, no big. Should be interesting to see how they do after this, because they can't do much worse. But
yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the team still needs to move a couple other pieces to get a complete team on the ice. But yeah, this whole last week was surrounded with trade rumors surrounding Ales Hemsky and Nail Yakupov.
Yeah, the funny thing is that it seems like they are trying to diversify their team a little bit more. They need help at goaltending and defense. And they went with their free overall, they were the number 1 overall pick the past 3 years up until this past year. And they chose, high, octane forwards. So that was Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, and then Nail Yakupov.
Or Nugent Hopkins.
Nugent Hopkins. Eberle was not in there, right?
Eberle was for Hall.
For Hall, but not number 1.
Not number 1.
Got it. Okay, my bad. Thank you for clearing that up. So yeah, it's just kind of it didn't. It's interesting because when you had the number 1 overall pick, they needed it, but at the same time, maybe they should have traded up or traded down. Still sat at like number 5 or number 6 to another team and could have still picked up someone pretty good, but also got something in exchange for it. Because now that they're looking to trade Yakupov, that's going to be. I just don't know why you want to give up on him so early, but
a lot of Oilers organization has put those rumors to rest, or so they say.
That they're trading him?
That they're keeping him.
Oh.
Dallas Eakins has gone to Yakupov saying they're not moving him. The Oilers' Twitter page has said they're not moving him.
Oh, wait, hold on. So they're not trading him?
No, but Larry Brooks brought all the trade rumors to light, and that's when everyone went crazy.
Oh, okay. So that's not going to happen anymore?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say, that would have been really dumb, even after just a half season and, a part of another bad season.
I still think they need to trade someone at Edmonton, but it doesn't look like it's going to be Yakupov yet.
Yeah. Any reason why? Anything besides, stuff off the ice? Is it just, his attitude, or is it...
Well, his whole attitude right now that I've read from a couple of comments is that he's made some comments saying, I don't like playing without the puck, I don't like hitting on every shift. He likes skating with the puck instead. So
right, and he kind of was able to command all that when he was playing in the junior championship league. The World Juniors, where he made his name for himself 2 winters ago now. And I guess I never really got that vibe from him, but I'm not surprised at the same time. He is Russian, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of, we always talk about the mentality that they have, and it's just not suited for, team play, which is really, a big deal in the NHL.
And it's weird because the Soviet teams were great based on team play.
Yeah, right? I don't know what it's all about. Because you did Kovalchuk, Alexander Semin.
Maybe
for the longest time.
Trying to prove Canadians in their league that they're superior.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, though. But what are you going to do? I just think that, from the standpoint, I think Edmonton was not smart and they didn't have enough foresight to try and go with different players that they needed, because you look at the New York Islanders, they've built by need. This will transition later on into how there's a story on NHL.com today, their weekly Sunday long read, and it talks about how you make the formula for building a team has kind of changed since the second Batman lockout in 2005-2006. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But the thing is, Edmonton hasn't done it correctly, and they're really trying to scramble right now because they have lots of prospects to trade. They have a lot of trade value right now. But if they're going to get rid of them or not, or who to give up on, it really depends on who they can get the best deal for and how they can just fit things together. Because they do have too many top 6 forwards on their team. They need more depth.
Yeah, they need those third, fourth liners and
the defense
and the top 4 defensemen.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if wait, I forget his name now. Andrew Ference. That's it.
That's right. They just signed him.
They signed him, and he's playing top line minutes. I'm not sure if he's best suited for that.
No, he barely scratched the second pairing in Boston usually, right?
Yeah.
He was a third, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, but Boston is really deep at defense anyway. I mean, they have Seidenberg, Chara.
Well, that's what I mean. He shouldn't maybe be the top defense.
He's a good third defenseman.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's solid and he hits, which is very, you always need. But yeah, when you need your top pairing, you kind of need that, dynamic kind of player that can create if necessary, kind of like I guess I'd say more so like a PK Subban, just because he has so much offensive talent, but also does not shy away from the physical game.
Yeah.
I think you talk about that, or Chris Letang, or Drew Doughty even, they hit. They're not just,
They're offensive threats, but they're really sound defensively.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think. I mean, those guys are obviously a little more offensive than maybe. I mean, you can even look at Ryan McDonough, who's maybe, more situated on being a defenseman first and a forward.
And he's gotten a couple points the last couple of games.
He has, and that's why I think he's a good example, because he's not too flashy on the offensive. Like Erik Karlsson is definitely, an offensive defenseman.
He's basically a forward playing defense.
Yeah, and the PK Subban is less so a offensive defenseman, but it's hard to kind of find that balance. But I think that's where Edmonton needs to go. If they need to go and try to find somebody to fill those different roles, and they really haven't done a good job of figuring out who's going to fit best for their team and just making themselves a good all-around team.
Yeah, definitely need to shop one of those guys, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it is. I don't watch enough Oilers games to speculate. I mean,
a lot of Oilers fans are saying that the only 2 guys they say they should keep are Jordan Eberle and Nugent Hopkins. Because those guys are the 2 that work most consistently and are durable to an extent.
Not even Taylor Hall?
They say Hall plays a little recklessly sometimes, and that leads him to get hurt.
Okay, I can understand. He has been prone to injury ever since he entered the league, so that's what I'd ask. But yeah, it's a good point. Jordan Eberle is definitely their diamond in the rough that they have, though.
Yeah.
Same guy, and I think it's just weird that Alex Hunski's just been having his name floated around for years now. It seems to be traded
from Cogliano to Surrey to now Hemsky.
Yeah, it's just been crazy. So Edmonton really just needs to solidify their team, and they need to get moving. They really just need to start making a move and start building. I mean, at least if you want to switch gears, we can look at in Buffalo, and where they've already kind of committed to the rebuild. They already know that they're not going to be very good. Edmonton's kind of in this bubble, and I think part of it's just because they're in Canada.
Yeah.
I think it's there's a pressure to win all the time, no matter what, and not go into a rebuild. And but you go into Buffalo, but there's still some significant pressure in Buffalo, but Buffalo's definitely really committed to the rebuild, which hence why they traded Vanek. Hence why they might be really considering Ryan Miller to get traded.
Yeah, and after a big loss yesterday to the Ducks.
Yeah, Buffalo lost 6-2 yesterday. And it really, it was a bad game.
Yeah, and Miller is getting a lot of blame from these other Sabre fans, but big Sabre fans see that it's not him, and it's the defense in front of him, and they hope that he's able to get out of that situation before it destroys his character, because now he's talking to the media saying comments about his defense, or I forget what he said.
Miller said something?
Yeah, he's been making post-game comments that aren't
really
not him. He's just frustrated.
Huh.
And anyone would be frustrated on that team right now.
Well, it's interesting because you say that, because the thing about what's happening in Buffalo too is not only are they not playing well, but during that same exact game, the top line for Buffalo was completely benched for the final 26 minutes and 11 seconds of the game for what their new coach cited as a lack of effort, or did not like the effort they were putting on the ice. And that's really that's a big issue, because effort's always something that needs to be there as a hockey player, as a professional athlete. You need to always be willing to go out there and be also going out there to play your best game.
Yeah,
and
you get paid to do that.
You get paid to do it. It's your job, and that's why it's tough. But I can also sympathize with the players too. 'Cause I saw this because Matt Molson's on my fantasy team, and he had said that benching was probably the most embarrassed he's been in his career, which is saying a lot. And it's embarrassing when your top line doesn't get to play the whole third period.
Yeah.
I mean, it's saying something. At the same time, though, too, I'm not sure how much coach is trying to help his team out by not playing the top line. I mean, it must have been really, really bad that they had to bench, the top team, because the top line, because I think Matt Molson's usually a guy who plays well, but at the same time, I can see them, maybe giving up.
Yeah.
Because they're getting, I don't remember what the score was at the time, but they got killed.
Miller faced 35 plus shots through 2 periods. And that also happened when they played the Rangers.
Right.
Where they got 38 shots through two periods.
Let me jump into the scores from yesterday and see if I can get a track on what happened, because it seems like it really just got out of hand quickly, it seems, and it was just not...
Getzlaf got a hat trick that game, or against last night against the Sabres. And I found the quote from Miller and said, "It was a disaster to be a part of." A lot of frustration there, and hopefully, a lot of Sabre fans hope that he can get traded so he can leave with some dignity, and they can go cheer for that team. I could see that. I want to see him on a good team, because watching him in 2010 in the Olympics was great. He was amazing that year.
Right.
And I think he can still be that world-class goaltender.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think he can. I think he's shown some promises of it. I mean, the Ranger game, too, he looked like he was playing really spectacular. It could have easily been a 5-0, 6-0 game.
Yeah, the goalies are the only bright spot in Buffalo right now, because they're keeping it from being a blowout.
Yeah. So it's just been, I can understand. That's saying, when the guy's not going to be beating around the bush about, how most guys usually conduct themselves, saying, oh, well, we just got to play better as a team, or I got to be better, taking it upon themselves. But it's not a good thing when, your star goaltender's going on making shots like that, again, it's just frustration, but, the top line is getting benched because of effort issues, which shouldn't be an issue, but I can see why it is an issue. It's hard to play for a team when you're getting beat this badly. I brought it up, it's from Friday night, that's why I couldn't find it right away.
Okay.
After the first period, it was 4-1 Anaheim, and they're up 22-7 in shots, Anaheim, for the first period.
Wow.
And then it was 5-1, then 5-2 Anaheim, and then 6-2. So it was 6-2 at the end of the second period. So it was the final 26 minutes or so. I guess that'd be a little bit after the Buffalo second goal, at about 13:09 gone by in the second period. So that's probably just where it set it in, or it might have been a little bit before that goal, because that wasn't their top line that scored, and it was just, I mean, they just got sat for that whole entire third period then too. So it was just not a good sight in Buffalo, and it's just,
Rebuilds are frustrating, but this one just seems like it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, but you know what?
Usually rebuilds happen after your period of success.
Right.
Buffalo really never had that success.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny you mention that now, because I'll move on to the other point I was talking about earlier. The Sunday Long Read on NHL.com discusses this week about how teams have used their downtime well to rebuild and restock and rejuvenate their franchises. And I mean, we've opened the story of, this week's show with talking about how Edmonton's going through kind of a rebuild, how Buffalo's going through a rebuild. I mean, they talk about several different teams. I mean, New Jersey maybe hasn't declared it yet. They probably rebuild once Martin Brodeur retires. I mean, Philadelphia, are they in a rebuild? I wouldn't say they're in a rebuild yet, but they're almost there because it's unbelievable to me. A team that's made the playoffs, for the last 4 years or so, and they can't, they can't figure it out. I mean, thankfully, Claude Giroux scored his first goal this week, but
against Edmonton.
Against Edmonton, so that tells you how bad how hard it's been. But we're gonna talk about that Carolina Philadelphia. Did you watch that game this week?
I did not.
You did not. I'll tell you about it. Remind me to bring me back to that point later. But we're talking about rebuilds, and rebuilds are a huge, huge issue. I mean, this article again, I didn't get all the way through it because these things are huge reads, but they're fantastic reads all the same. And they talk about how George McPhee of the Washington Capitals, right in 2003-2004, talked to Ted Leonosis, the Capitals owner, about how the new CBA was going to be coming up, and Ted Leonosis believed that there was going to be radical changes to the NHL and how it operated. So they ended up selling off most of their old guys, such as Jaromir Jagr, who they had at that point, and they had other guys, except they kept everybody but like Olaf Kolzig. They had Olaf Kolzig. They got rid of everybody but Olaf Kolzig. And they got rid of their older guys and hoarded a lot of, young, prospects and picks. And it ended up being that in 2004, when they drafted number 1 overall, they took Alex Ovechkin, which has been, it's paid dividends. Yeah, of course, they don't have a Stanley Cup, but it's rejuvenated the franchise. People are coming out all the time. It's always a great atmosphere in there, from what it seems when they play on TV. And I mean, they're close. They need a couple pieces, obviously, and maybe a better captain. But I mean, that's all up for debate. The thing is, though, is that the culture has changed from the Jagr days that were there, where just it was not a fun time to be a Washington Capital fan. So now, at least now, they're a little bit more successful. They've been one of the more prominent teams in the league.
Yeah, being promoted a lot too. Yeah,
I mean, Alex Ovechkin helps with that too. One of the more explosive players in the league, and so they've done a really good job trying to recover from that. And then, but then we look at the teams that have won a Stanley Cup, and they mentioned Chicago is the only team since the 2005-2006 lockout to win the Stanley Cup twice. And Dale Talon, who was a GM coming into the 2005 season, he kind of looked at the team, and they the Chicago Blackhawks kind of trudged through 2 more years of mediocrity. So for 2006 and 2007 seasons, they were not so good, but both those years they picked up Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews.
Yeah.
So they did they got their core of their team through the draft that way, and then thus have been able to supplement different guys in there, and it shows difference in how teams are now building through the draft and really making their young guys instead of, because what they're talking about with the Capitals is that they had a lot of old guys who were getting older and not really playing well. The same thing with Jagr. They brought him in. Remember, they brought him in out of Pittsburgh, and it was like a huge deal. I remember when they brought Jagr in, like season tickets for the Capitals sold out for that first year in like record time, in like less than half an hour or something. It was unbelievable. Yeah. Everybody was hyped up for it. But again, Jagr was just not good there. I mean, people tend to forget that he was not. He was even in Washington. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so it's just and it used to be the way, and the Rangers were the same exact way. They would build a whole entire team with superstars and has-beens and wash-ups, and they were getting paid for what they had previously done, not what they were capable of doing at the present time, being overpaid, have a huge payroll of, these superstars that used to be good, and then, completely underperform and play terribly. And that's not the way you can do it anymore. You can't buy your way to a championship. You can't do that anymore. It's plain and simple. You need to have, it's a younger man's game, as it's commonly said, and you need to be fast, and you need to have very good, pieces. Because we always talk about how it's not just about how much scoring you have. It's about having those bottom, 6 guys too, that help complement the top 6 guys, and then also having the defensive depth, but also provide a little bit of scoring, and having solid goaltending all the way throughout with some intangibles for really important stuff because you can't just make it with a bad goaltender these days either. You need a really top-notch goalie to really go far. And you might want to say you might look there here and there about some of the past goalies such as Corey Crawford who just won this past year.
I was gonna bring up Antti Niemi.
Antti Niemi kind of got lucky. I mean, he's kind of proved himself to be an elite goaltender now. I'm still not sold on Corey Crawford, but that's a whole different issue.
I'm far from sold on Corey Crawford.
I know you are, but the thing is, you still need a solid goaltender, and whether or not you think Antti Niemi or Corey Crawford are elite or not, they had a good defense to help them out, and anybody can play better with good defense.
Yeah, and another Stanley Cup champion, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now their goalie is being questioned now.
Yeah, exactly, and their teams that have all been built through the draft, like Crosby and Malkin, have come up. Malkin was picked right after Ovechkin in the 2004 draft, and Crosby was picked first overall in the 2005 draft.
Yeah, and they also got Stahl too, and I'm not sure if he was a first rounder or not.
I don't think I don't know actually, but I remember he was there, and so that's the way the things are going these days. So it's interesting to talk about the rebuild because we all know the Hawks had not won a Stanley Cup in 49 years until they had rebuilt their team. The LA Kings had never won a Stanley Cup prior to their Cup championship in 2012. The Bruins had finished, before their Stanley Cup. They were 4 years prior to that. They had missed the playoffs 3 times and were either a second last or last place team in the Eastern Conference 4 years before they won the Stanley Cup. So it shows you how quick the turnaround can be and how important building for the draft is. And it's really important that you pick the right guys, but then you also make the right decisions to ship out guys and to bring in last-minute pieces at the trade deadline or via trades during the season earlier on that you need to really help. And that's why this whole way of building a team has now shifted from really buying superstars to building a team and building guys through the draft and, buying low on guys and buying low and selling high on guys. It's just really become an art form. And it's really interesting to me. It's just because it's so different because hockey's different than, say basketball where you heard the guys are going to be scoring the top, most amount of points in the league. Like if you have, again, you look at the Miami Heat, they're going to win. They have a very good chance of going deep in the playoffs because they have 3 guys on their team. 3
perennial All-Stars, 3 Olympians, 3 of the
best players in the league. But you can't do that necessarily in hockey. It helps sometimes, but they got to work together too. And it's a lot different because now...
Also, basketball, you're on the court more than you are on the ice in hockey.
Right. And I think one thing they also mentioned that really changed the atmosphere of hockey is the salary cap. Because the salary cap prevents you from trying to dedicate all that money to superstars and prime talent. It forces you to try and diversify how you spend your money and who you're going to be keeping on your team. Because then you look at it, what's the right word? You need to be more wise about where you spend your money. And also, the competition has also just gotten better all around. Like in the NFL, any team can beat anybody. I mean, Jacksonville just won today for the first. And they won their first game of the season.
The Giants won again.
Anybody can beat anybody on any given Sunday in the NFL because they've done a good job of really, limiting teams to having to spread their wealth around. Be more judicial of where they spend their money. Instead of being like the old Rangers of the early 2000s and spending all your money on wash-up guys, just because you have the money to do it, unlike other smaller market teams that don't have the same financial liberty.
Yeah.
So that's where I've enjoyed where hockey has come because I was a big fan of that because I think that's what forced the Rangers management to be more mindful of how they spent their money and how they built their team instead of throwing money at the problem and big names at the problem. Now they've really made themselves into a better team, and they've been playing better this week, too. So it's been
Yeah, after a dismal start, starting to play better.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean... So it's really just... to me, it's just really interesting to see how you really need to build your team and how it really needs to, build your core, how important that is to really... You need to really dedicate to the rebuild, and you can't be like Buffalo, who's really trudged their feet through the mud trying to rebuild.
Or like how Toronto skipped their rebuild, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. They really haven't. I don't know. That's the thing, because you never want to admit to it. I understand that. You don't want to say we're giving up for 4 years. It's hard to do that. It's hard to say that you're going to go out there and not going to win. You're kind of programmed from a certain, mindset that you want to win.
The competitive drive in hockey wants you to win.
Yeah, and then you're not trying to tell the players to not win. But when it comes to keeping veteran players that are fan favorites and trying to, manage a team for the future and sustain it, it's hard. And, fans don't always agree with you, and, you never know what's going to happen with, busts in the draft, or, a veteran's better off leaving the team or something. You're always guessing, and you need to make sure you make the most informed and best decisions. And it really just shows you, like, in Chicago, they were ready to rebuild and stink a little bit more to get better, and it really served them well now that they have 2 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, and a whole lot of fans that have money to pay for those players.
Well, again, and that comes back to, we've talked about this several times, but now that there's a lot of excitement that now they've made it something more sustainable, where they have a little bit more money to work with.
They can go and get guys like Marian Hossa.
And they made their destination a lot more lucrative and a little bit more interesting to go to, instead of being
it's Chicago. It should be marketable.
Well, not only that, in its original 6, but now it's a place where players can go and they can expect to be a very good team and be very successful and possibly win another Stanley Cup championship.
Yeah. And
that's what I think is really important about it, because with the increased fan base, too, guys like playing in front of, big houses, and that's
yeah.
And I think that's the important part. And then even going back to the Washington Capitals thing, they haven't won a Stanley Cup yet, and that's of course their number one goal.
Yeah.
But they're much better off now than where they were 10 years ago, because they committed to a rebuild, and they got Alex Ovechkin and all these youngsters that are on their team, and they made themselves a very competitive team. Again, they haven't been the number one team championship yet, but they have committed to the rebuild, and now they're a better team because they committed to the rebuild.
Yeah, they're always up there in conversation and points.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and then they weren't very good I don't think they were very good Alex Ovechkin's first year or even second year, but since then they've been one of the best teams in the league and one of the most feared teams in the league. So that's the thing. And I just thought that was really interesting, because you always think that, I just find it fascinating because it's a rebuild. You don't like to admit to it, but it really, at least in hockey, it shows that if you commit to it and you make the right decisions and you're really thoughtful about it, great things can happen.
I think it's because of how hyped free agent day is still. When all those big name players change places, you don't really focus on the draft because those kids are still like 2-3 years away. You start
right. No one makes like immediate impact.
Free agents, you know what that guy is. You know his highlights. You know his moves. You know his point production.
And plus, they're also kind of already made their name for themselves too.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's easy to overlook the kids because they have nothing to. You have nothing to look at them at, or
especially in the United States, you don't watch all the junior leagues.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and
it's tough to.
Right, and Tyler Seguin was not a household name until after his 2012 campaign.
Yeah.
With Boston. Brad Marchand the same exact way.
And that's another team that rebuilt.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a team that's I think I mentioned them earlier, but yeah, they're also because they're one of the most recent champions. And they've done a good job rebuilding team. And they did a good job when they got Zdeno Chara still going into his prime.
Yeah.
And he's also been able to maintain his physical...
his level of play.
His level of play, exactly. Both offensively, skill-wise, and physicality-wise. So that's what's been a very good factor. It's a very good pickup for them. Then they just kind of supplemented it with trying to get, they got Tim Thomas, who was an older guy, who they just kind of grabbed out of, beer leagues and everything, who was a great fit for their team. I mean, you can break it down as much as you want, but the thing is that they got the guys that they needed through the draft. They traded away Kessel. They had to trade away Kessel to get that number, and ended up getting the number 2 overall pick, and ended up being a key cornerstone to their Stanley Cup team.
Yeah.
And then it's you go a bit further. You go take it a step further. Tyler Seguin, who helped them win the 2012 Stanley Cup, they almost won this past year. They made it all the way to the finals, and no, they won the 2012. They won 2011 Stanley Cup. Sorry, 2011 Stanley Cup for Boston. The 2012 was L.A. and then Boston made it to Chicago this past year, but failed. And given how much Tyler Seguin struggled, they traded him to try and get Louis Eriksson to try and make their team better. So
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff that they knew that he didn't fit anymore, and they were able to try to get a good return on him. And it's all about these kinds of moves, and it's hard to do that because Tyler Seguin's a very good player. But it was
Just
obvious.
didn't fit the identity of the Bruins.
It was yeah, exactly. It was obvious he did not fit well, and that he was not going to make a as lasting impact or as good impact as they could as getting a guy who can fit the identity a little bit better of the Boston Bruins. So, and that's what it comes down to. It comes down to that, and it's a lot different from what it used to be. You can't throw money at the problem. Veterans again don't have the same worth. They can't play as well at 40 years old. Because there's only some guys who can actually do it, like Teemu Selanne, and still play at a really high level. But most guys lose a step or two, and they have to adjust their game, and they just decline. And you can't, be paying these guys all their money for what they have done. And it's hard to do that, so you have to really be wise about where you spend your money. And that's why I really think the NHL is fun, because anybody can win. There's no guaranteed victories. And,
you gotta work for everything.
You gotta work, exactly. So, I just thought it was a really interesting point, because it's something that you always think about, you gotta rebuild to get somewhere, but it really showed you concrete stats and examples of why it has worked. It showed and proved that it has worked, and that's how you really have to do it these days, to really have a good mix of veterans and young guys, and be fitting inside the salary cap, and just really trying to commit to it and finding the right people that will work together to make you a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, some GMs need to still learn to not throw money at the problem.
Yeah, right. Well, there's always going to be that problem, whether it's Glenn Saver or Paul Holmgren. These guys who have, big war chests, they don't have anything else to do with them. And
well, at least Saver knows how to buy each position. Holmgren only thinks it's left wingers, right wingers, and centers.
Yeah, right. Well, we can talk about Philly after the break. I think we'll take a quick little break for our halfway point of the show, and we'll be right back at you. I guess we'll talk about Philadelphia and a few other things that we find of interest. So stick around.
Tend to me, my sweet, and treat me oh so tenderly, my dear, and you will see that I'll be everything you want me to be. My everywhere, my certainty. Friend for me, my sweet, fight them off most viciously, my dear, and just believe that I'll be the very thing you hoped I might be. My everywhere, my gravity. You see, I'm so good on my own. It's just now I feel tired.
Heartland Advisors reminds all our listeners that area blood banks are currently dangerously low on blood supply. If you are a donor or have considered being one, we need your help now. 4 people will benefit by just 1 unit of blood. Donating is one of the greatest gifts you can give and the best way to save lives in your community. This reminder is brought to you by everyone at Heartland Advisors Milwaukee, on the air because they care.
I never really knew the strength I had to keep from falling. I guess I never really knew the lengths I'd go to keep from losing my control. I guess I never really knew the fire I lit would keep on burning. I guess I never really knew the path I took was the only road I'd ever walk. Oh, when the weight comes, but sometimes it gets hard to breathe. Till I hear it calling, softly calling out to me, saying, come on, lift it to the ceiling. I sing it with some feeling. Lift it from the water so we can keep this love high, so we can keep this love dry. The words I wrote will keep me breathing. I guess I never really knew that, darling, you're the fire that burns inside my soul. You burn inside my soul. So shout it out and say, come on, lift it to the ceiling. I sing it with some feeling. Lift it from the water so we can keep this love high, so we can keep this love dry. You come on, lift it to the ceiling. I sing it with some feeling. Lift it from the water so we can keep this love high, we can keep this love dry, so we can keep this love high. We can keep this love. So we can keep this love high.
Hi, this is Buzz Williams.
Hey, how you doing? This is Steve Taylor Jr.
Hey, this is Crystal Tooley.
Hey, this is Todd Mayo.
Hey, this is Derek Wilson, Marquette Basketball. You listen to Marquette Radio.
And we're back with that new MU basketball sweeper, which is quite fitting. First game of the season was this Friday versus Southern University, and they won Marquette, but it was not very convincing. They won like 63-57. They only won by single-digit points, which was a little alarming, but
It's a close game, but that's how Marquette plays.
I also heard Southern was also really good. They almost
upset Gonzaga last year in the tournament.
Yeah, so they're not a bad team, and so I think people just need to keep that in perspective because it's hard to get run crazy. The one important thing that I'm worried about is that they have they have Ohio State coming next weekend.
Yes,
which is going to be a very interesting game to watch. Right now they're both top 20 teams. So
the one thing I'm worried about is that it could make or break our season, I think. But
I don't know, make or break.
It was like last year, the Carrier Classic. Imagine we got trounced like we did against Florida last year, by Ohio State as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that argument. I feel like what needs to be said about that is that I think they'll be fine. It's earlier on. It's a non-conference game. As long as Marquette plays well in the Big East once in the second semester of this year, I think they'll be fine.
We're picked to win the Big East this year.
Yeah, exactly. I think this will be a good litmus test to see where they fit in for national title hopes. But I just think Ohio State might come in and manhandle us. But we'll see. That's why they play the games.
We'll play the games, and the fans will be there for sure.
That's right.
But enough basketball for right now, because we're talking about hockey.
Exactly. So, as we mentioned before, Claude Giroux finally broke his goalless streak against the Edmonton Oilers. And how many games did it take him, Jack?
It took him 16 games this year, but I think it stretched back to 24.
Oh, my goodness.
Dating back to last year.
Got it. I mean, because you would know you have your team's name to jump in Jerusalem, so.
Yeah, the 1 year I'd name it after someone, he starts to do bad.
Well, maybe they're turning over a leaf for him at least.
Maybe I turn it to Crosby's Heroes or something.
Yeah, it's the little voodoo doll kind of thing going on.
Yeah, like putting the other team's roster in the freezer.
Yeah, right. Exactly, doing an old Uncle Mike trick there. So, But guess what, though? I mean, I mentioned before on Tuesday of this past week, rather, there was a game. It may have actually been Wednesday. Wednesday makes more sense. It was Chicago. It was not. It was Philadelphia and Carolina, and maybe it was Monday. I can't even seem to find it now. But it was a really just interesting game. It was Tuesday, and there was nobody had scored. It was just a defensive battle. It was just not a great game in general because both teams have just been underperforming. But Philadelphia gets a power play late in the game on what was it? Was it Nathan Gerby? And there's a Nathan Gerby penalty for roughing with Mark Streit. Yeah, he got an extra 2 minutes because he didn't like what Streit was doing him in front of the net. But it ended up being a bad penalty, and he got to the box. And Scott Hartnell scored his first of the year on a power play goal with about 3 minutes left to go in the game. So it looked like Philadelphia was going to cruise to a 1-0 win from there on out. But, of course, Carolina pulled a goalie for one last-ditch effort. And with about less than a minute remaining, 53 seconds left, Eric Stahl passed it to Jordan Stahl and connected for a goal to tie the game up at 1. Sending it to overtime. And, Philadelphia was really strong in the overtime, too. But it came at a point where Kimmo Timonen came down the ice and got stopped. He got hit by Manny Malhotra, right as before Timonen was in between the Carolina blue line and center ice.
Okay.
And he coughed the puck, and it went right to the Carolina defenseman. Meanwhile, Manny Malhotra, after making his hit, started going up the ice, received the outlet pass, and he skated down the ice. And Manny Malhotra, again, just in his comeback campaign from his scary eye injury, I think we mentioned last week that he's starting to play with Carolina this year.
Yeah.
And he makes his move down the ice, and he's almost about to get caught, and he goes to his backhand to try and get a clean shot off. He shoots it. It goes right underneath Steve Mason's arm for the win. And I guess, and so Manny Malhotra, it's a great feel-good story for him to be back in the NHL, but it's just kind of been a bad season for Philadelphia. It's just kind of been like that. They fought hard to get that goal. They made the most of their power play, but they gave up the late goal in the empty net. When the Carolina pulled their goalie, and then they gave up a really soft goal to end in overtime.
Manny Malhotra, the flyer killer.
Yeah, I mean,
always seemed to do well.
Yeah, I think you're right, and just in general,
it's a good story for Malhotra. While it's a bit of an exclamation point for the Flyers.
The Flyers this season. So
the season so far.
That's the thing, and that's why I don't know. Other than that, they don't have any depth and any secondary scoring, because when your main guys aren't scoring, then there's nobody else that can help pick up the slack.
Yeah, it was last year, I believe. Kimo Timonen said, what was it about Giroux?
Right.
Is wherever he goes, we go.
Right.
And whether or not Giroux is ready or not to
step up
to be the captain, he has to make sure he steps up so his team will step up too.
Right, and it's not exactly Giroux's fault, but you're right. I think Timonen hit the nail on the head. Of the team kind of lives and dies of him, because Giroux is such an emotional guy too. He plays with a lot of emotion, and he really has a lot of pride.
Yeah,
and I think they really depend on that energy, and it's not like they really need they need him to come along, but that shouldn't have to be the case. Everybody should be able to get up themselves and be able to perform without whether or not he's performing or not.
Yeah, their offense is on paper it looks great.
Exactly. They look pretty good. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about them other than the fact that they just need more depth and they need to really step up themselves, because they just can't rely on one guy to do it all for them. And that's that's hockey for you. You got to have all 20 guys pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, even though Giroux can be a top 5 player in the NHL, you have to make sure you can do your job.
Exactly right. Exactly. You can't just rely on that guy to do his his stuff, because he's still only on the ice for less than a third of the entire game. So you still need the whole other team to be doing well.
Yeah.
I guess what else is going on, Jack?
In the the Devils Nashville game.
Oh yes.
Devils are up 1-0, and Jaromir Jagr scored, giving him 1,700 points for his career. He is the 8th player to reach that plateau, with names such as Mario Lemieux, Steve Yzerman, Marcel Dion, Gretzky, Messier, Howe, Francis.
Yep. So that's all. It's very good company for him. I think there's no denying that Jaromir Jagr is going to be
first ballot
Hall of Famer. I mean, he's been such a dominant player in all aspects of the game. He's definitely not the same Jaromir Jagr he was when he first came up with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But he's still, no matter where he's gone though, even though when he was at Washington, he was still a pretty good performer. He played a really good job when he was at the Rangers. He's, been good for Philadelphia. He's been really just, a good impact player wherever he's gone. Now
he was also the mentor for Sharapov over in the KHL.
Right. Sad story about that when he passed away with his heart condition that nobody knew anything about.
Yeah.
But he's been a good mentor, and that's why I think he did serve a role on Boston's team last year. But I often said last year that he would only, but it was pointed out that he was only doing 20-second shifts, in the third period, which is unacceptable, because then that means nobody else in your team is getting a rest, or the other forwards aren't getting a rest, and he wasn't doing much out there in terms of skating or scoring wise. And so that's why I was skeptical to see how he could do this year in a full season with the Devils. And I mean, so far so good for him. He's leading the team in points there. So
yeah, but Jagr was quoted as saying he's going to play hockey until he can't walk anymore. And one of the fans commented, on a post or whatever, saying, "Oh, so playoff time you're talking about?"
Yeah, right.
But Jagr, just a legend, playing since early '90s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, 1,700 points that's really good company. I mean, those guys are all Hall of Famers themselves. They're all just unbelievable hockey players, and you gotta.
He's the first European to reach the mark, right? Or Dion's
Canadian. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. It's a very good point. Yeah, it's a testament to the diversity of hockey and the global reach of hockey too. And what's also interesting? It always gets brought up because you always hear about the traveling Jagers and how Jaromir might get traded again this year to another team, so the Devils can get some picks and prospects
to rebuild.
To rebuild, exactly. But I'm not sure if his contract can be able to be tradable or not, and it depends if the Devils do turn it around. But it's amazing how many teams he's played with, considering how big of a player he has been in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, because when he was at the Rangers, he was a good lift up, but he was almost too soft at that point in his career too. Like, he didn't bring enough to the table to keep him around for specifically what he did.
Yeah, he had an amazing year the year after the lockout. What?
Yeah.
123 points?
Yeah, 123 points, and he had 54 goals. He broke the Adam Graves record of goals.
And he did not win any trophies for his points.
Yeah, because he got snubbed with Joe Fortin with points and Jonathan Chichu with goals. It was that stunk.
Yeah, but I like that team, that Ranger team. It had Marty Straka, Michael Nylander, Peter Pruka.
That's right. Yeah, it was a crazy team, and he was kind of like the leader in that locker room. And
even though we had 3 A's on the ice,
yeah,
the Rangers, because they were observing Messier's first year of retirement.
Yeah, exactly. And in hindsight now, I don't think Jaromir Jagr is captain material. I think he's a good mentor.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't think he's a captain kind of type of guy.
Yeah,
he didn't. I don't think he really served the role well with New York. I mean, it always seemed to be Shanahan really talking to the guys when Shanahan was around.
Yeah.
With the Rangers, and I think
maybe it was a language barrier.
It might be. And you look back to Pittsburgh, he played a very good job playing next to Mario Lemieux, who was a captain. I don't remember if he was a captain in Washington or not.
I don't remember.
But
was it Clark?
It might have been Chris Clark still there. But again, not some great years there. And then after he went to the KHL after being with the Rangers and came back with Philly, wasn't the captain, but played very well on the top line with them.
With Claude Giroux.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't the captain in Boston this past year when he played with them. Didn't matter. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
He played in Dallas too.
His first Western Conference team.
Exactly. Crazy. I just can't imagine, a guy with that kind of talent just being all over the place.
Yeah, you usually don't see that. It's usually
usually when you're that good, you stay with the one team, or one team doesn't really want to get rid of you. So.
Yeah.
But even Gretzky played with 3 different teams, but that's a whole nother story. 4 different teams, rather.
Even though it was 30-something games with the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
I still see those Gretzky Blues jerseys around.
Yeah, they don't forget.
Yeah.
So, again, kudos to Jaromir Jagr and a great career wherever it may end or continue to go. Do we know how far Solani is right now? I'd like to see where Timu is in on that.
Yeah. I think it was a race between them to see who's the highest scoring European of all time.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's interesting to see because I didn't expect Jagr to have such a great year, but clearly he's doing a very good job so far.
Well, he's also playing top line minutes with fellow countryman Patrick Elias.
Right. Well, at the end of last season, he had 1,430 points, so I'm not sure if he's not going to be able to reach that 1,600 mark by the end of this year, but still going to be a number one.
I think they're close in goal totals.
They're close in goal totals, yeah. What was it? Timu's at 675 goals. Yeah, that's one thing I was hoping for. I was hoping Timu could reach 700 before the end of this year. But
yeah, if either one of those two reaches 700 goals, they'll be the first Europeans to reach that milestone too.
Right, Jagr's not there yet either?
I don't believe so. I think Jagr was closer.
Okay.
But
let's see, at the end of last year, NHL totals, he had at 681. Yeah, so they're pretty close to each other. I'm not sure how many Jagr has this year. I'm trying to do all this on the internet. It's hard to kind of coordinate all of it, but
just legends from our childhood.
Exactly, and that's the way they've played the game and the way they've been able to play at such a high level for
so long.
Years and years. It's just it's a testament to where they have been and what they've done and being able to adapt their game to play better, even as they've gotten older, to really, still be successful in the National Hockey League. And now maybe I think Teemu maybe be a little bit more accustomed to the whole thing because he can kind of skate for longer times. But at the same time, Jágr's proving right now that he still has a step or two, even if it's still early in the season right now. He's still, when he's at his, when he's resting right now, I guess is the right word. We'll see where he is by the end of Game 50 at the end of the season, or into the season.
And the Olympics, too, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be nice to watch possibly Teemu's and Jágr's last Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to make it, though? Because I know Canada's been really trimming down on their teams, but I guess it's different for the Czech Republic and the Finnish teams.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have the depth that Canada does.
Or the United States, so let's see. And then, so Jágr's currently at 685. I got to updated. And then I'm going to pull up Teemu's here, too. Because I'm always interested to see where these guys are at.
Yeah.
Let's see, here it is. Teemu is at 678. So 685 for Jágr, 678 for Teemu. Both reachable goals. They both hit 30 goals this year. They will both have 700 goals, which is catastrophic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, an interesting kind of development. I mean, I don't know what else was going on in the NHL, Jack. Do you have any clue about what we got? I mean, scores. We can go through the scores in the NHL.
Yeah, you can do that right now.
What is it? So far, it's Montreal and the New York Islanders at the end of 2. It's 3-1. Goals for Montreal are Brendan Gallagher, Lars Eller, and Michael Bourneval. I don't know who that is.
It's one of their new kids.
One of their new ones. Okay. It's good for him. And then
He's been on a bit of a tear.
All right, maybe I'll have to pick him up in fantasy this week. And then the goal for the Islanders is Pierre-Marc Bouchard, who's actually having quite a good season with them. He's currently at 2 goals and 4 assists through 16 games. Now, he's not playing a huge role on the team, but he's contributing, and then that's all you can really ask of. 17:56, just the start of the second period in Nashville and New Jersey, where it's still 1-0 on the Jaromir Jágr goal. 17:20 left in the second period between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. That game's tied up at 1 goals. The goal for Florida is by the number 2 overall pick from this year's draft, Alexander Barkov, and the New York Rangers goal is from JT Miller. So, other game in progress is Edmonton-Chicago at still 0-0, 5:25 left in the first.
Hawks have 9 shots on goal, and Edmonton has 4 shots.
Okay, so Edmonton's hanging in there. And games still left to be played are San Jose and Winnipeg in an hour, along with Vancouver and Anaheim going to be played in an hour. And I missed this one down here too. Washington and Colorado are just getting started. So it's a big slate for a Sunday night.
Yeah, you usually don't see that. It's usually Saturday nights, especially with Hockey Night in Canada.
I mean, there were still like 10 games yesterday, but yeah, that's usually,
a lot of back-to-backs this week. I mean, the Rangers had back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday. And there's
several teams definitely playing back-to-back tonight.
Blue Jackets had something, and the Ducks had something.
But yeah, again, a big Sunday, lineup for this year. So for this, not this year, but for this particular weekend. Other news in the NHL: there was a line brawl involving in the AHL, including between the Providence Bruins and the Bruins organization and the New York Rangers organization, the Hartford Wolfpack. But one prominent guy in there was Malcolm Subban, who was playing minutes, playing the goaltender. He is directly related. He's the brother of PK Subban of the Montreal Canadiens, and he got into the fight too. So videos just surfaced of that, and it doesn't seem like it went very well. But I guess whenever a goaltender gets involved, it's never a very good thing. So that's something we can post later on for you.
And I also heard some report or something saying that they're thinking about making goalie fighting an extra penalty or suspension.
Yeah, I think it was going to be 10 games extra. It was 10 games just flat. And I just think that... Did we talk about this last week?
No. I think we talked a bit about goalie fighting, but I don't think we brought up the suspension. But we talked about how fighting suspensions could lead to disaster, about like dirty hits and such.
Yeah, because again, at the same time, it prevents you from standing up for yourself, especially as a goaltender. If you're getting, berated and, getting wailed on, and you start fighting somebody, or or the other goaltender's fighting, and you need to go in there and take out the other goalie and pair up with him, you're going to get slapped with an automatic 10 games there. And so again, if you have your backup goaltender and you tell him to, start a fight with the other goaltender, then that's not fair to the other team, goaltender that's the number one pristine goaltender in there. Because you can just change your goalie and start a fight and get the number one goalie, suspended for 10 games. Especially, check that out. Imagine that happened in the playoffs. That's my big issue. I don't think that should happen, because you should be able to defend yourself, and you should also be able to, you should be able to say you don't want to fight.
Yes.
And Ray Emery last week, when he got into the fight with Braden Holtby, was really more of an assault.
They gotta make sure they tell the referees they can break up fights.
Yeah, they should have to, because at the USA Hockey level, when I was a ref, but they told you if you're in a 3-man or 4-man official system, the linesmen are supposed to break up the fights, and the referees are supposed to watch and take names down for everybody. In the NHL, where you have so many cameras on so many different people, you shouldn't have to be the ones watching. You're the ones directly involved, and you should be able to go in there and stop people from getting hurt. And that's why I disagree with that. Even when you're in a 3-man official system in USA Hockey, you still have to watch and take names and see who's the perpetrator, who's instigating, who's doing bad things. You also have to watch the benches and see that nobody else comes off. But you still, in the NHL, you should be able to break up a fight as a referee. I don't care if you're not as big. I don't care if you're, you have to be in there and be the voice of reason. You have to own the rink. And that guy who was involved with the, holding off Holtby and Emery, he told the other Capitals guys not to come. He told them directly. So if the guys came, they could probably get ejected for that, for joining for third man in.
Yeah,
and so they can't do that. They don't want to do that. They don't want to get ejected for the game. But their poor goaltender was helplessly getting beat up. But it was a mismatch, and he didn't want to fight. And Ray Emery just completely violated all the rules of fighting there, just because he wanted to get a cheap shot in for the Philadelphia fans.
And that's how some people take advantage of that third man in penalty, because Dan Carcillo a couple years ago gets Marian Gaborik, and all the other Rangers are scared to jump in because they don't want to get an extra third man in penalty.
Mm-hmm. And I understand it's supposed to protect their guys, but at the same time, when it's a fighter versus a non-fighter and it's a non-willing combatant, you should be able to diffuse the situation. The referees need to do that, or they should need to allow the fighter to actually fight somebody who's and again, you go down and say, oh well, everybody should be able to fight or whatever, and it's going to be hard to do that. But it's easy to tell who's a fighter and who's not a fighter, and who's willing to fight and who's not willing to fight. And this is where it gets dicey, because I think fighting still serves a purpose in the game, but I don't think you should have to fight. You shouldn't be forced to fight.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be forced to.
What should stop it are the staged fights and the non-willing fights, like the one that just happened.
And Scott and Kessel, John Scott and Phil Kessel, happened in the regular season.
Yeah.
Or in the preseason, rather. Holtby versus Emery. Those, you can't let those happen, and because that's how people are going to get hurt, and that's how people are going to bend the rules to hurt the opponent's best players by using their scrub players.
Yeah.
Because their scrub players get suspended, so what? So what? It's that Dan Carcillo is out. What does he really bring besides grit? He did his job getting rid of the, best player for the other team. Then that's where they need to draw a better line and define it, that the other teams can stick up and protect their players when necessary and not have to worry about getting a third man. And otherwise, the referees need to go and prevent that stuff from happening, because it's not going to stop until they do something about it.
Yeah.
And so doing 10 games for goalie fights, you're going to start limiting guys. It's the same kind of thing. You're limiting them. You're making them scared to fight, because, that's, an eighth of a season that you're missing, 10 games that you can't play goaltender for your team.
You lose that pay,
and
too.
You lose the pay, and you know how much you impact the game. The goaltending position in the hockey is a huge spot.
They're the only guys that stay on the ice for the whole 60 minutes plus.
Right. And that's where you need to not do this. I understand goalie fights can be catastrophic, but that's because Ray Emery broke the rules of fighting right there. And he totally disregarded Braden Holtby. He said, did you hear what he said? He said, I gave him a chance to defend himself. No, he didn't. He had no chance. He used the referee saying no players to come in and just totally mismatch fought him when Brain Holtby was just trying to make sure he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
And Holtby didn't go into the fight. He didn't do anything. Bray Emery was just mad from earlier on in the game and took out his frustrations and charged all the way down the ice unfettered, unprovoked.
Yeah. What I think the NHL should have done was maybe done something, fine Emery for what he did, not for fighting, but for fighting a non-willing combatant and Holtby.
And the problem was the NHL said they had no grounds to suspend him on, but what he did was clearly something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, it was wrong. They just couldn't find anything against the rules.
Well, it hasn't stopped the NHL before either from making bogus things. Because I was watching the I'm not sure how many if you watched it or not. I was telling you about it. It was the NHL rivalry series. It goes on the Tuesday nights before Wednesday night rivalry games. And this week it was the Penguins and the Rangers. And I never realized how much of a rivalry, how much connection they have. But apparently in the 92 playoffs or so, or 93 playoffs, Adam Graves slashed Mario Lemieux across the arm and broke his hand. And Mario Lemieux was in pain. It was a big deal and everything. Graves got suspended the rest of this series. I had never heard about this before, ever. And but what happened was the NHL said that because there was a different game back then. You check the hands with your stick all the time. That's what people did.
Yeah.
And the NHL said, well, Graves did not intend to hurt Mario Lemieux. This is suspended him anyway because it was Mario Lemieux. And again, that's never stopped the NHL before from making on the spot suspensions.
Yeah.
So. And just on a side note, again, this might just be me being a bitter Rangers fan, but I admit we weren't very good since the Penguins had Mario Lemieux and beyond. But literally the whole thing was a pro-Penguins piece from NBC Sports. And I'm not so completely surprised, but I think they literally had nothing for the Rangers. They had no positive stuff for the Rangers. Not even when they beat them back in the October 25th, 2008, October 25th. Where they scored to tie the game with 9 seconds left and then won in a shootout.
That was a good game to be at.
It was awesome. And then a couple of years later, was it 2011? It was a year of when the Rangers were really good. Or the year before where Stahl tied it on the penalty kill. It was 4-on-3 and Stahl went and scored with a minute remaining in the game to tie it. And then Dubinsky and Callahan hooked up for a beautiful overtime goal. They did not mention any of that. None of that was mentioned. And now I understand there's just 2 regular season games that never, maybe weren't that impactful. But if you do a rivalry thing like that, you need to actually.
A rivalry is not one-sided.
Exactly. You need to be a little bit more objective. At least try to show that you're a little more objective. So
a rivalry is built between 2 teams. Show the 2 teams.
Exactly, and that's why I got really.
And they were also promoting the Crosby Costas interview after the game. That's why I was kind of happy the Rangers
took it to them. Yeah,
trounced them.
Yeah, they really took him to the cleaners. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist stunned his head earlier in the game, but again, it just came down to come on, you can't just. Let's just try and be a little bit more objective here. So, that's my 2 cents on that whole thing. But we've known that for a while. That NBC Sports kind of. They promote who they need to promote, and the NHL does the same exact thing. We just got a thing from my dad explaining the whole thing, that it was a 92 playoffs when Mario played the next game and Graves was suspended for the next several games. So Mario Lemieux had his hand broken but still played, and he feigned injury and got all this controversy going on. I guess Crosby's more like Lemieux than we ever fought, in more bad ways than good ways, I think.
Yeah, and teach him how to dive.
Because I never heard about that. I thought that was crazy. I never heard anything about that.
Yeah.
But also, as we start winding down the show, the Rangers were President's Trophy winners that year, so that's why we were poised to go on and do well, and they really stunted our playoff hopes, because that was early in the series. That was Game 3 or something.
Yeah, I remember watching all those
93,
94 montages saying that 92 was a disappointment.
Right, because that's when Messi won MVP.
Yeah.
Rangers were the President's Trophy winners.
Thank goodness the Rangers won with that team.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were going to get the can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was kind of the thing. They had to win that year because they gave up so much. They gave up Amante for Larmer.
Dimitra. Oh, wait, no, was it Dimitra or was it it was some
Gilmore?
It was some blue. I remember.
It was Gilmore. I don't remember either. But yeah, they had so many rentals though. They had so many guys on rental. They had to trade with Gartner for the team, and they had to bring in guys that fit the mold better. And they
Get Keaton's boys.
Exactly. They thankfully won, and then they had to kind of blow up the team thereafter, similar to Chicago and after the 2010 championship. So, but again, hockey's a little bit different, but that thing still remains where you make a lot of moves at the deadline. You try to get the pieces that you need, and you trade away your surpluses.
Yeah, when we were talking about the rebuilding and such, I was just thinking about the 93-94 Cup team for the Rangers. That you had guys like Mateau, Tikkanen, Larmer, like those role guys.
Yeah, the role guys. They weren't going to wow you. And Larmer, who had a really great career, was at the tail end of his career, but added a lot of secondary scoring.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff along those lines. So I guess, do you have anything else on your mind, Jack?
Nothing at the moment.
Nah, all right. Then I guess we'll tie it up a little bit early. Just stay tuned. I think there's lots of stuff coming up this week. Do you know what a rivalry game is this week?
I'm not sure. I
take a look at
I
that.
think they also have something for the Hall of Fame this weekend too.
Yeah, it was Devils and Leafs on Saturday night for the Hall of Fame game, and I think Dallas won that game. The rivalry night game is going to be Philadelphia and Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. That is going to be good because
especially if Drew starts scoring.
Because even though as Philadelphia has struggled this year, they got up for the Rangers, and they will definitely get up for Pittsburgh.
They always
on
do.
NBC Sports Network. So it'll be a good game to watch.
Maybe we'll get another line brawl.
Yeah, right. So
the NHL loves those.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, they say they don't like it, but yet they promote all their games with it.
It's kind of like when they used to say they got mad at Sean Avery all the time, but then on the game of the week, see Sidney Crosby take on Sean Avery and the Rangers. It's like, what are you doing? You can't condemn this guy and then go right around and plug him as the guy to watch in the game. Just,
I miss the old days of NHL marketing with the NHL, coolest game on earth.
Yeah, as much as I miss, that, there's some things that the NHL is just always kind of, really? All right. When was the Hall of Fame game? Was that this weekend or was that next weekend? I'm trying to figure all this out.
I remember seeing Hall of Fame patches on the Leafs jerseys this weekend.
Yeah, they played Jersey. I can't find the game and which one they played, but we can do some updated scores before we sign off. Montreal and the Islanders are now 3-2. The extra goal score was by Brock Nelson, University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux alumni. That game is about 10 minutes left in the third period. New Jersey is now at 3-0 on Nashville, getting goals from Cam Jansen and Marek Zidlicki.
2 goals in 2 games for Cam Jansen.
Oh, man, he's on a tear right now. Paul will be happy to hear that.
Pick him up in fantasy, guys. Especially if you have penalty minutes.
Rangers in Florida are halfway through the game, still tied at 1. Chicago has scored a late goal in the first period for Brandon Saad. Jack, you think you're happy about that?
I am.
And Patrick Bordelot has opened the scoring for Colorado against Washington and is 1-0 with about 13 minutes left in the first period there.
Washington has 0 shots on goal so far. How many penalties?
It's Varlamov versus Capitals.
Only 1 penalty to Carl Alsner. Wonder what's going on there. Maybe it's the defensive system Wa's been running.
Could be. Washington's been up and down. They're always streaky. And San Jose is trying to right the ship now in Winnipeg. It's still no score. 14 minutes left in the first period. Surprisingly, San Jose has lost 4 in a row after a really hot start, and they're still really in a commanding lead. But we can talk about more about them next week and see how things develop, especially at this road trip. Because they were first, and they were killing it for a while. Now they dropped to 6 in the Western Conference at 24 points. Anaheim currently leads at 29 points, but let's take a look at their division breakdown in the Pacific.
But it's the same thing.
San Jose's third.
San Jose did the same thing last year.
Yeah, they started 7-0 and then went 7 losses in a row. So completely canceled each other out.
Yeah, but yeah,
so I also got another thing to say. we need to sneak a shout out for my brother Luke. Our brother Luke is he wanted to get on the air today, and we need to look at how to work the telephone a little bit better so we can get him actually on the air. But he wanted us to give him a shout out, so we got something planned for you, Luke. Don't worry. But before we do that, we got any loose ends to tie up, or we got through the scores.
I think we got everything.
We got everything. All right. Well, if you guys find anything interesting online, please post it to our Facebook page. We'd like to talk about it. If you want us to talk about it some more, please let us know. We always want to talk about what you guys want to hear. So, anyways, Luke, I guess we're going to do another song. And this is one of my favorite songs, so I'm going to do this one out for you, Luke. So, it's